Welcome, welcome everyone. My name is Askia Marie Christian, and we are doing a video about water as part of my Thoughtful Times with Askia Marie podcast 100-Year Plan Outline series. I started recording audio content in 2015 as a result of a 2012 head injury and PTSD that caused me to not only experience memory loss, but also to experience writer's block. And within a couple of years, I decided to take some of those recordings, turn them into content. And that's how I came up with Thoughtful Times with Askia Marie, which is available on Spotify. The 100-Year Plan outline that I wrote in August 2017 was really as a response to the Obama backlash that many of us in the Black community predicted would happen once he was elected, but also the emergence of groups like Black Lives Matter. And I had a really strong desire to kind of get to the bottom of what was happening because we were about 100 years from when the NAACP had been formed. I would like to give a shout out to Roland Martin and his Black Star Network. I'll be referencing some words from one of his episodes, and also want to give a shout out to the Karen Hunter Show. She has been an important part of me kind of gaining confidence as an independent journalist and a woman of color, feeling, both safe and free to speak my truth online. Today is kind of coming to fruition about a 10-year period where my friends and family were hounding me, colleagues, "Oh, Askia, you should do something. You're so great at talking about things about our people. Why don't you have a show?" And I would kind of just look at them and say, "That sounds like a lot of work." But and so while the revolution will not be televised, that's a shout out to Gil Scott Heron for you young people who don't know, there is some handy information that you can find on platforms like YouTube. Okay, so the name of this episode is Water, Blackxellence within the Marine and Maritime Industries. And yes, I said Blackxellence, which is a combination word of Black and excellence, because that's what I'm about. I would like to say really quickly, I'm not formally affiliated with either Roland Martin or Karen Hunter. I just look up to the work that they're doing. Going back to the 100-Year Plan, I had mixed up in my mind who came up with the talented 10th, which is a concept out of the school of thought of W.E.B. Du Bois. And so I was kind of trying to get more information on it when I heard this song called, excuse my language, "The F Word with Me, You Know I Got It," which is by Rick Ross, Jay-Z, and a rapper named Birdman does the intro. And he kind of goes on about Black people being descended from kings, which I liked. But then he talks about how we like shiny stuff. I don't like that part because I was like, we're not squirrels. Like, yes, gold and diamonds and all of that comes from Africa, but there's a lot more to being a king than wearing jewelry. And so that led to about a 10-page rant that eventually turned into my 100-year plan. And real quick, I'll go through the 6 star points. 1 is the reallocation of resources. 2, resolution of generational trauma. 3, knowledge gathering and data keepers. Where is our data and where are our laboratories? 4, alliances, meaning a modern day underground railroad. 5, discernment. We need to be careful who we allow to speak for us. And examples from history are Marcus Garvey and Elijah Muhammad. 6, war of words. From the governments that control our lives to large language models, which are now being used to create artificial intelligence. We as a people are very good with words, and I feel it's important that we use our ability to use words well as a strategic tool in our arsenal against our oppression. So, the focus of today's episode combines the first and second star points. So, we're at the intersection of African and African American history of water and what I call the new Black Wall Street, which a lot of people talk about, and how it must include the trades. And so today, that's why we're focusing on the marine and maritime industries. We're also going to be talking about community health, mental well-being, and education. Specifically, how swimming can be used to promote and foster unity within our community. Like that, in quotes, unity within our community. And we're going to talk a little bit about the challenges of today and how we can make progress going forward. I want to say that getting all four of these individuals together has been like a 6-month task for me to, have enough people come across my path that are in the maritime or marine industries. So I'm super, super excited to have all of my guests. And real quick, I'm just going to run through and say that we have Tarnisha, and she is the owner of Foxy Transport out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. If you want to wave to the audience, Tarnisha. Then we have Shawana Kendrick. She is the owner of the H2O Life out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we have Asante Seifa Buachi, who is the owner of Black Star Polo, a nonprofit out of San Diego, California. And we have DeKevius Martin, who's the owner of Martin and Marine Company out of Florida. Okay, and then I, your hostess with the mostest, Askia Marie, am coming live to you from Northern Virginia. Okay, so I'm going to now introduce more fully our first guest, is Miss Shawana Kendrick, the founder and CEO of the H2O Life out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. A close friend of mine last month knew I had been wanting an additional guest for this episode, and that I'd been searching for months while recovering from a concussion I sustained in September. And so he sends me a group of pictures all of a sudden from the winter edition of a magazine that's local to Chattanooga called Get Out Chattanooga, featuring a picture of Shawana and an article about her company. I was so excited. It was December 13th, and, I already have Asante and DeKevius, signed up, but they're both men. And so it was really important to me to try to find, a lady who had started a company related to water to include as part of this episode, who was also Black. And I just want to say that Shawana's overall commitment to improvement within her community is something I greatly admire. After being able to meet and speak with her digitally, I literally can't wait for the next time I'm in Chattanooga so I can give her a hug in person. I just love everything she is so passionate about, and I hope our audience is able to connect with her story as well. So please, Shawana, tell our audience about who you are, who you come from, and what you're working on for the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Askia. I am just so grateful to be a part of this discussion amongst so much Black brilliance. Like, this just gives me joy. So I have to just be really transparent and honest and say I have not always been an outdoor enthusiast. I rediscovered, if you will, some things that I had never tested or tried, but were always drawn to, and water is one of those things. Originally born and raised here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. My parents, however, are from small towns in Mississippi. Of course, they were very accustomed to being outdoors, not necessarily always for recreation, but in terms of just the lay of the land and water in general. They spent the majority of their childhood and into adulthood outside. Um, but that still is not why I started the H2O Life. The H2O Life, which in this instance, H2O stands for hiking, healing, and outdoors, was really birthed out of a need or a desire of mine to get more Black women connected. Um, we are stronger together. And as much as, um, sometimes, especially in the media, you hear stories that are not necessarily positive and certainly do not. And this is mainstream as well. Don't necessarily depict the sisterhood that exists. So I wanted to make sure that I created safe and trusted spaces for us just to be. We carry a heavy weight and a heavy load. And so it just so happened that I found us making connection organically outdoors. And it started with hiking and then paddling. And so that's where the Women on Water has come about. The Black Women Paddle, we just did that this year and it was amazing. Um, you almost can't put into words what we're seeing and how women's lives are being changed for the better. And the outdoors is kind of the base that we use. But at the end of the day, this is about mental health. This is about connection, and this is about community. So if we can tackle all of those things and have a good time while we're doing it, I'm all for it. And I do not take this role and this opportunity lightly. I want to make sure that this mostly white male dominated outdoor industry sees us, and that's Black men, Black women, but sees us and understands that we are not like them. And no, you don't get to come into my community, our community, and dictate what we do or how we do it. We are an intelligent race.
Yes, ma'am.
We are brilliant. Are we always in a position to experience things that have come easy for them? Not necessarily. So I want to help break those barriers. I want to help offer exposure and opportunity to experience something that a lot of us just have never experienced. I think one of the things you wanted to know was what's next. I cannot believe I'm going to do this, but I am going to hike or summit Mount Kilimanjaro in June.
Oh, wow.
And the goal, yes, I know. I said the same thing when I agreed to do this. But this is a Black-led, Black-run guide company, and it is all Black women. And so I'm like, yes, I need this, right? So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, we definitely appreciate your mission and passion. You're so inspiring, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more about the H2O Life specifically, how the company works, what you all do, that sort of thing.
Absolutely. So we offer probably more programming than we do just regularly scheduled hikes and paddling excursions. We have quarterly glampaways, and that's really a because I know how some of my sisters are. Trust me, they have shared with me what they are and are not willing to do. So a lot of them are not going to camp. So I try to meet people where they are. So we glamp, and it's just an opportunity for us to get away for a couple of days in a comfortable, safe, because safety is of utmost importance for me. I do not want someone's first experience outdoors to be unpleasant. They may never try it again, right? But disconnecting is what this is about, because we're always in this rat race, right? Like we're always on, we're always going, we're always providing, we're always doing, we're always working, and we forget the importance of rest. And so if I can create a space for you to just shut it off, even for a moment, hopefully that will not only remind you of the importance of self-care and rest for you, but it will rejuvenate you and change you in a very unique way, something that you can't prescribe. It just has to happen organically. We do have hiking programs, and so we all often offer like a training program. If there's a big hike that's coming up, we will train for that. And so we offer that level of expertise in terms of what you should be prepared for, whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or a more advanced hiker. And then paddling, which has just become my second love. I have to be honest, hiking is my first, but paddling has become my second love. And it's really because of a fondness I have for water.
Right.
You know, we forget the importance of water, and, you know, you hear doctors often saying, Western medicine anyway, drink what, 8 ounce glasses of water a day.
Right.
How many people actually do that? Probably not as many as we think. But in terms of what water does, water heals. There's a spiritual cleansing that happens at times when you look at water in general, bodies of water. Why do people enjoy going to the beach so much? Why do people enjoy beautiful views of large bodies of water? Why do people go to the pool? There's something soothing about it, and we don't talk about it enough. But that's just something that I've learned to really appreciate and hopefully introduce people to. It is not something that we should be fearful of. I think historically there are reasons. No, I don't think. I know that historically there are reasons why we shun water-related activities, why we have this inherent fear of rivers and lakes and ocean. And I don't. That's not lost on me and the work that I do in introducing women to paddling, especially.
Right.
Some of the same women who initially, when they saw me out paddling, said, I'll never do that. A year later, they're like, when are we going back? Right. And so I'm a big fan of, you know, meeting people where they are, not being forceful, but giving people an opportunity to kind of see it, to experience it at their own comfort level, and to be there to support and encourage no matter what. Maybe you try it and you don't like it. That's okay
Right.
too. But you tried it.
Right.
And I'll take that. That's a win.
That's a win. I agree. You know, as someone who also grew up around the outdoors, and for our audience, I'm a fellow tree climber because Shawana had shared that with me previously. And, you know, Shawana, I really appreciate you being with us today to illustrate how much our communities need access to the outdoors. And, you know, we'll touch on it a bit later in the episode, but also, as you said, access to interaction with bodies of water for leisure activities and stress reduction is of the utmost importance. So we're going to move on to our first Q&A. So Shawana, my first question for you is, did you grow up around water? Your website mentions, you know, you growing up outdoors in the Chattanooga area. What was your access to water like when you were growing up?
So technically I did, because of the Tennessee River and the varying lakes and tributaries in this area. Technically, yes. Did I go out there on the river? Nope, I did not. That was just not something I did. My parents were amazing, and still are amazing parents, and, you know, got us swimming lessons, and that was great. but I can't say that I was ever 100% comfortable being on a large natural body of water. Did I admire it and did I enjoy looking at it? If we drove over the river, drove over one of the bridges, yes. But to be on it or to get in it, no, that was not my jam. Um, and it's so amazing that people ask me often, when was the first time that you went paddling or got into a kayak? I honestly do not remember the first time I got in a kayak. And I think it's because it felt natural to do. I wasn't afraid. I just did it and loved it. Um, and I kept asking my parents, somebody else in the family has to be like, I know I'm not the only one. Because my cousins are like, yeah, sis, we'll sit on the porch. We're not going out there. We're not doing the things that you do. And my mom shared with me that one time, without their parents' permission, and this is a big deal in rural Mississippi. My mother's 84. She was born in 1939. So think about that for a second, right? She and one of her cousins actually got into a canoe, and no one knew that they were there. They were, I don't know if it was a man-made lake or a pond of some sort, or man-made pond rather, or a lake. But they went out and they had the best time, not knowing what they were doing. Neither of them actually knowing how to swim, but they had a good time and they tried something that was very different and something that they weren't accustomed to doing. And the only reason they turned back as quickly as they did is because I think it hit my mom that neither one of them could swim. And so they both agreed, you know what? We've gone far enough. And so they paddled back. It resonated with me so much when she said that, because now I see just a portion of where I get this love of water from, this willingness to try new things, to adventure, to go beyond my comfort zone. Just always been drawn to water, not understanding that there are healing properties in nature, and water is one of those just natural healers. It cleanses us spiritually, physically, emotionally. It does all of those things, even if you just sit and listen to it. There's a reason why there are all these apps and right, that water you can hear. There's a reason. There's something soothing about that. So, but of course, there is nothing like experiencing it firsthand in person, if you can. And you don't have to get in. I think people are, you don't have to. I would encourage you to try, but even if you just spend time near water, it does something to you.
Right. Oh man. That's super interesting. The difference in the exposure and appreciation for the outdoors, knowing how to swim, that occurs between multiple generations of a family. Like, especially in our community, the last few hundred years. About the story that you told about, your mom and your cousin, have you been able to visit the pond or the body of water they went out to?
I have not, but I am on a mission to find this pond before my mom or her cousin leave this earth. I want to find it. I would love to record them telling their story about when they did this, and really document that for historical purposes. I don't want any of this to be lost with a generation. Right. I want our future generations to know some of the things that we've done, things that we've tried, and hopefully that will give them at least the idea or the hope. My hope is that they'll get something from it, and it'll continue, right? Like it won't get lost, and it won't just stop because no one shared it, right. Which I know we find that more and more often in our community because we're not sharing our history. We're not sharing our experiences.
Well, we're doing some of that today, and I'm super excited for you, you know, in your future experience. And I definitely hope you're able to visit this spot. And, you know, definitely when it happens, I want to see the video, the whole thing. My second question for you is, your business caters directly to women. Why is it so important to you to provide the sort of space that your organization provides? And what key elements did you choose to include to encourage women to make time for themselves in the way that you describe happens?
Well, part of it is because I know how difficult life has been for me as a Black woman. I've spent a number of years prior to starting this business in corporate settings. And without going into too much detail, the harsh realities that Black women face in corporate America, and not just in corporate America, it's everywhere.
Everywhere.
What I realized is that I had grown numb to the things that were happening. I had grown numb to microaggressions. I had grown numb to some of the corporate tricks that are often played on us, and of course to our detriment. I had almost begun to believe that I was not good enough to be in some of the positions I found myself in, because of some of the distractions. And I'll just call them distractions. I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
The other side to that is someone very, very, very close to me. At the age of 52, she took her own life. And I've often wondered, and this was probably 2 decades ago when this happened, I've often wondered, did she not have a safe, trusted space? I've wondered whether maybe spending some time outdoors could have helped. I will never know the answer to those questions. I will never have that.
Right.
But I know what I've faced, and I know that there is not enough research on the mental health of Black middle-aged women, especially when you start looking at suicide rates, depression, and anxiety. We don't talk enough about what our bodies go through, whether someone is entering perimenopause or is already in menopause. We don't talk enough about those things. We don't share that information as openly as we probably should. And I think what happens a lot of times is that people think that they're the only ones dealing with something, or no one else is. Right? No one else could possibly be going through what I'm going through. And that's not the case. I have a solid friend group. You know, there are some people out there who think, oh, she just wants to make friends. I don't need any more friends now. I don't. I'm good. I'm good on friendships. I got solid friendships. But if I can help another Black woman get through the things that she is going through, I'm here for it. Right? Let me be used to do that.
Awesome.
Because I know what I've experienced, and I do not want another Black woman to even have to deal with some of the things that I've dealt with. So I will always stand up for Black women. I will always, and guys, brothers, I love y'all. I do. I just need you to understand, when we're whole and when we're better for you.
Yes. Yes.
So I want you to know that this is not I love our men. Love our Black men. I do. Right? But we got to do our work. And if we don't do that, we will never be what you need us to be for you. I didn't mean to say all that. It just, I'm sorry. It hit me.
That's the type that's the type of stuff that we're supposed to be discussing today. So thank you, sister. I'm going to make up a question here and say, if you could give your self advice from 10 years ago. Just two sentences. What advice would you give yourself?
Don't shrink and don't settle.
Whew, say it again.
Listen, I listen. I didn't know we were going to have church today. Now wait a minute. I mean that. I do. Everyone is gifted with something, and so you gotta live in that. You gotta breathe that. You gotta do that because somebody, and I know we've heard this a million and one times. Somebody needs what you have.
Yes.
It can only come from you the way it comes from you.
Mm-hmm.
And while we may have shared gifts, baby, nobody can do it the way you do it. So don't you ever let anybody make you feel inferior. Don't you ever make anybody feel like you are not good enough, capable, have the strength to do it, because you do. That is your gift. Walk in that. Embrace that. Be bold.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody doesn't like it, that's their problem, not yours.
Not yours. Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you. No, thank you, Shawana. First of all, thank you for being a guest on my show. And thank you again for the work you do within your local community in the Chattanooga area. And then I just want to thank you in advance for the great work and the many positive experiences I know you will create for women in the future. I am absolutely blessed to have made your acquaintance and firmly believe that you and I will have more opportunities to work together and support one another on our various endeavors in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Great first guest. Great first guest. All right. Next we have Mr. DeKevius Des Martin. Our next guest is the founder and co-owner of Martin and Company Marine Inc. He goes by Des to most people, and we refer to the company as MNC. I say we because, full disclosure, Des and I are engaged, and I am the other co-owner of MNC. Des has more than 15 years of experience working on boats, from diesel engines on yachts outside of places like Lyon, France, to onboard and outboard engines on personal watercraft. I have a background in business management, the back end company functions like bookkeeping, creating standard operating procedure, sales, contracts, everything related to business development management. So that's how, we combine our powers. Des, would you please tell our audience a little more about your story, how you became active in the mechanical spaces that led you to work as a marine technician, and how you've been inspired to own your own business?
So I'm originally from the same place as Miss Shawana, Chattanooga, Tennessee. My grandfather on my mother's side was a paratrooper medic ranger for the United States Army, and once he got out of the Army, he began doing a lot of mechanical things. He started working various jobs using his hands. He eventually settled for the Bunge Oil Refining Company in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where he was a boilermaker, welder, and chief maintenance officer, or the head mechanic guy there. On my father's side, my great grandfather actually ran the first black-owned fuel and full service gas station in Southside Chattanooga called Martin's Exxon gas station off of Alton Park Boulevard. And he was also one of the founding board members of Finding CARTA, which is Chattanooga Area Regional Transportation Association. So he was on that as well. So I have a good inkling or natural giving from both sides of my family on the maternal side of being very good with my hands and being very mechanically driven. But I loved motorcycles. I love racing cars. I love, doing anything that was fast. I was an adrenaline junkie. And then I eventually fell in love with working on just engines solely. And then going through vocational training through in Chattanooga after I, have gone to college, have traveled, have worked corporate jobs. I've worked menial jobs, manual labor jobs, everything from here to Timbuktu and everywhere from here to Timbuktu. I've kind of came back home, had to take care of my mother, take care of family things, decided I would go to a vocational program to gain some more certifications. And because I'm always a thirst for learning and speaking with instructors there, they were kind of looking at me saying, you know your stuff, but if your passion is one thing, you should look at doing the opposite. So my passion was motorcycles, and my instructors kind of pushed me towards boats. And because I had conversations with them, and both of my instructors are actually the opposite. One that teaches boats was actually a motorcycle guy, and one that's a motorcycle guy spends more time on boats. So I decided I would take their advice, and it actually does work because I spend so much time around boats. I'd rather be on a motorcycle than on boats. But I do find so much peace being around water, in water, and being on water. And it was just one of those things to where I like working on engines, and being a person of my skin tone, I don't have to worry about how fast I push a boat on the water. As long as I'm following certain boating, laws and regulations, I know what zones I'm supposed to be speeding through and being slow through. Once I get to the open water, I don't have to worry about boating while black like I do driving. I can just full throttle and I can see how fast it goes. I don't have to worry about being pulled over. Even though riding a motorcycle and getting wind therapy is good for me, I like it. It is, it is still a part of my therapy. I still get my wind therapy trying out different boats and different models. And I don't have to worry about that. Even when I'm on my motorcycle, I'm still kind of anxious while riding, and I cover up a lot so that you can't tell I'm a black guy on a motorcycle that's riding. And when I'm on the water, I let my hair down, I let my skin show, and I'm full throttle, full send. Let's see if I can break it, and just having fun. And it's peaceful because it's like, what are you going to, I'm on a boat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on a boat on a body of water when the planet, the little rock we're hurling through this space is 70% water.
Right.
So, yeah. I was like, I have plenty of places to run, plenty of places to go, plenty of places to see and do. And I can't even say when or how I fell in love with boating or the water. I just know that my family would take us, for summertime. We would always go swimming.
Mm-hmm.
That was like one of our main things. We would go to a Booker T. Washington State Park, and we would go swim every, at least 2 or 3 times a week during the summer, because it was, at the time, it was like $1, $2 to go swimming. So we would take our allowance and hey, we would harass our parents until our grandmother would take us to go swimming, and that's what we did.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, Des, for sharing about your story and journey, as a person and that's what he calls himself, gearhead. So for those that aren't aware, Des also brings skills and experience in areas like graphic design, marketing, and sales management, to the collective table, which brings us to the pitch portion of my segment with Des. And I'll just say, as the co-owner, that MNC started out, as a formal company, so Des could transition from just doing side mechanical work, to having a formal LLC. Around 2020, I was doing a lot of work with a consulting company that I have. But in 2021, I ended up being able to do bookkeeping for a marina. And it really opened my eyes to how most marina business models are a mix of sales, maintenance, repair, management, and customer service. And, since I have a background in so many of those areas outside of the mechanical side, I found myself becoming more and more involved.
Mhm.
Fast forward to Hurricane Ian, September 2022. We're down there. I mean, the hurricane category 5 landed within like 20 miles of where we were. And so, yeah, it was like this life-changing event. And after surviving that, I felt like we had to make moves. And I'll go ahead and say part of that was because Des lost $50,000 worth of tools that were damaged and destroyed in the right. And the company he was working for at the time, they had no plans to file insurance claims, reimburse him. And it wasn't just him, one of the other mechanics on site, and it was, just a devastating thing. So here I had been watching for years. He's working at these marinas. He's hired as a tech, but he's doing all kinds of extra support work, customer service, management type duties, but without the recognition and without the financial compensation. So around, after the storm, I was like, you could manage your own marina. And he was like, what? Here you go. And I was like, nope, I bet you could do it better. And so from there, I happened to Google how many Black-owned marinas were there in the country. Not even 10. Not even 10. And so from there, I was just like, you know what? My investor, you know how they say Spidey sense, or as a Scorpio, I say my Scorpio sense. It was like my investor sense. I was like, I smell coin. I smell coin because statistically speaking, I know, especially post George Floyd's murder and post 2020, that if I put a package together to say, hey, we need 200,000 to 2.5 million, so we can make the statistic not just be 9 or 10 or 11 Black-owned marinas. Because the boating industry is a $6 billion industry. As of 2020, which saw a 13-year high in boat sales. On top of that, an estimated 100 million Americans go boating each year. 100 million, I don't know what that number is. And the annual sale of boats, marine products, and services, it's almost like $50 billion. And so I didn't have to look up the numbers to know how little of that money is circulating within our communities.
Mm-hmm.
And so November 2022 to February 2023, that's when I really started, putting all the numbers together. We had 2 initial investors interested in funding, and we didn't have anything put together. Again, they just heard that statistic. Only 10 own, Black-owned marinas in the whole country. And they were just like, oh, I'll help with that. We ended up having to put things on hold from the spring to the summer of last year. And then we, really started getting into potential properties to purchase, and decided on the area where I am, the DMV. Not only is it chocolate, where I am, but
there's also a lot of fishing up there.
There's a lot of fishing. There's a lot of boating. And, I was a little nervous because I hadn't done any live funding rounds since before the pandemic. And also, usually if I'm involved with investment deals, it's a whole team of people, not just me. But kind of got it together. As I mentioned earlier, I had a head injury in September that kind of pushed everything back. But as of this recording, we're on schedule for the second quarter of 2024 to do the next phase of our investment round. Des has been teaching me a lot. I'm continuing to learn, a lot on my own. And we've already secured a deal with one of Chattanooga's best barbecue restaurants that was forced to close down during the pandemic. And so the owner is willing to license his sauce, consult with us, so that attached to the marina, we finna have some amazing, amazing barbecue. And to our audience, I'm just let y'all know, when I tried the peach cobbler for the first time, I almost passed out. That's how good it was.
He calls it the gravel pit barbecue place. The place with the gravel parking lot. So Miss Shawana knows exactly which one it is. But also the main reason why I started Martin and Company Marine was because even everywhere I've lived, everywhere I've worked, I've always have done side work because it was never enough money. I was never getting paid, what I knew I could contribute and what I could make, as Mrs. Kia says. And it was always like I can always get work, get clients, but I could never make enough. Partly of it was due to how me being in corporate and being in different companies and whatnot, I allowed myself to shrink to fit in those spaces and places and undermine my value. And with my lovely fiance, she's kind of worked on me and helped me to not so much, to undo all of that self trauma to myself and self loathing, and to actually embrace and love myself, and to actually be my authentic, genuine self. And she's kind of the main reason why it catapulted to me just full on making everything legitimate with Martin and Company. I was struggling and scraping here and there to get clients here, clients there. But the biggest thing that I learned and I realized was that all the states, all the places, all the countries I've lived in, I have, for the most part, have been the only person of color in that room. If not, I may have been one of 3 persons of color in that room. As far as a mechanic working on boats, yachts, right now I'm currently sitting on a $2.3 million yacht. And I have only seen one other black technician work on yachts like this. I have not seen. I have one friend that is back in Virginia that he was promoted to service manager. He's the only black service manager that I know in the boating industry. Everywhere else I have worked, I have lived, I have been around, we're not represented, we're not seen. And a lot of us don't know how much money can be made in the boating industry. You don't have to be able to swim to make money in boating industry, for being around the water and being around boats. But they can pull the boat out of the water, you can clean it, detail it. That's money you can make. You can learn how to repair the body of the boat. That's money to be made. You don't have to be mechanically inclined. If you've gone to school for body shop, repairing a boat is similar to repairing a car. You can cross reference and cross train a lot of the skills. You can be an electrician. You can be a plumber. Like, these boats have a lot of components. There are houses on water, and people just don't. We haven't been exposed to it, so we don't know. There's people that pay thousands of dollars a month to have their yachts maintained. There's people that pay hundreds of dollars a month just to have it clean. There's people that will have their whole boat reupholstered every 5 years just because it gets sun faded, and they want the entire boat to match have the same color inside and out. The whole boat gets reupholstered. And if you can get them a better deal than what the manufacturer will charge them, and you can do just the same quality and level of work, they'll choose you. So there's money hand over fist to be made, but we have not been exposed to that. We have not been around that because of our fear of water,
right?
Our fear of not being black enough, or fearing that we're too bougie, or we think we're better than everybody. No, this is a constant avenue. Fort Lauderdale, Florida is the yacht capital of the United States and the world. There's more yachts in Broward, Palm Beach, and Miami-Dade County, Florida, than any other place in the entire world. But yet, we have not been exposed to that, to know that we see all these boats, but we don't know the extent of how much money there is to be made in them. People have their boats transported from one location to another. Snowbirds have their boats transported from the Midwest and the Northeast down to Florida every year. People move from East Coast to West Coast. People move from the north down to Texas. They move to different bodies of water. Well, guess what? They don't have a trailer. I have a trailer. I can transport your boat for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's another way to make money in the boating industry, but we don't do that. So that's kind of what I want to do with Martin and Company. Have the marina and make it a one-stop shop place so that you can get any and everything done that you need done for your yacht, your boat, no matter how big or how small. It can be managed, it can be done in-house, and I want it to be a bastion for people like us, so that say, hey, look, you want to learn how to get in the boating industry, you want to learn how to do X, Y, and Z, come here, I'll take you under my wing. I can show you what can be done, how it can be done, how to do your marketing, how to do your clientele list, because we don't know these things. We just know how to consume.
Right.
For the most part, all we do is consume. We don't generate anything. We don't produce anything. And that is the biggest part with our community. And I may not produce anything, but I generate something.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to chime in and say that 2024, they're saying that commercial real estate is going to be super hot, as far as private real estate. And so we're also seeing some benefits from the attention some of the media has been putting on the lack of funding for Black business owners within the investment space. And for people in our audience who don't know, there are AI platforms being developed as we speak to address how to get Black business entrepreneurs and traditional and novel funding sources, so that we're communicating and interacting. So now that we know a little bit more about Des and the MNC project, we're on to the Q&A. So, Des, what was your relationship with swimming growing up? Did most of your family swim as well? Were there any older relatives that had issues with water?
Never really. My entire family actually loved water, on both sides, actually. There were other health issues that my family members had, such as sickle cell. And two of my aunts had stroke very early on, back when I was in high school. So it prevented them from swimming, growing up. But middle school, they had the stroke. So it kind of prevented them from swimming with us growing up. But younger, yes, my entire family always went swimming. We would go to different, water parks. We would go to different places to go swimming, and it was very peaceful. And I just kind of learned how to swim better over time. I've never really had any full instructions on how to swim or anything of that nature. I just spent a lot of time in water and almost drowned a couple of times, but I, got better with it. I didn't let that fear consume me. I just learned my mistakes, and I learned how to actually progress more and more versus overestimating my abilities, knowing that I can dive down 25 feet, and hold my breath, but I can't do 50. I can swim fairly decently, in certain types of waters. Just that I know that I'm a better swimmer in salt water, and I'm better in brackish water than I am in fresh water. So it's like I know the different types of water plays a great deal on how I can swim, and I've just learned how to swim better over time. But my entire family actually loves swimming.
Oh, wow. Okay. My next question. Yeah, I'm sorry, audience. I'm still recovering from this whole I almost drowned several times. And y'all notice how he said it all smooth, like, yes. So grateful he's still alive.
It wasn't that dramatic. It was, I literally got to the point to where I was swimming a couple times. I was doing laps, and I forgot my placement in the pool.
Okay.
And I lost my breath and swallowed too much water, and I kind of freaked out for a little bit. But then I realized how close I was to the edge, and I
Okay.
was able to grab myself and pull up.
Okay. Question 2. What is your reason or drive for sticking it out in the maritime industry?
My reason and drive for sticking out in it is we're not represented in it. There in the maritime industry, there's not that many black captains. There's not that many black people in sales. There's not that many black people in maintenance, service, detailing. There's actually more Latinos and Hispanics in detailing than there are than black people in detailing. As far as detailing boats goes, um, I can name roughly one black person that I have made connections with for each major system of a yacht or type of repair or service that I can name for just one person. There's not five, there's not six, one for each system. If I need a fiberglass work done and I want them to be a black person, I have one guy I can call for that. Electrician, one guy I can call for that. And they have attempted to run me off of 3 different companies. I have been overworked, underpaid, abused, and mistreated on multiple counts. I have been taken advantage of. I have had the wool pull over my eyes. I have been lied to, said I was going to get one thing, but never got it. And I've been strung along. And I'm like, no, I'm being more selective of the deals and choices that I make now, but I will not let that be a reason I give up on a profession or career and an industry where we are grossly underrepresented. If my grandfather could be a lead black mechanic and boiler maker in Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the state of Tennessee, which is a fully red state, home of the KKK, and he refused to give up the white people from running him off from his position, I'm not going to let them run me off from mine.
All right. Well, thank you, my love. That's a lot of useful information, and I appreciate you emphasizing not only the lack of diversity within the industry, you also spoke about the lack of communication and knowledge within our communities about opportunities within the trades.
Yes.
One of the tenets of the 100-year plan outline is reallocation of resources, and that focuses on how we need to ensure current and future generations recognize that building practical skills, gaining technical knowledge, those are valuable resources for all communities, but specifically in the Black community. And so passing on knowledge and skills so the next generation understands the value of accumulating experience over time so that you can become a master at whatever you put your mind to, whatever you put your time and energy towards. So thank you for making the time to be here today to share with our audience, Des. And my on the fly question for you, if you could tell your son Sebastian one thing about becoming a Black man and entering the mechanical space because he's expressed wanting to follow in your footsteps, what would that be? Just one sentence.
Don't give up. Don't lose faith. Don't lose hope. And try to keep faith and have honor and integrity in everything that you do. Because that'll take you a lot farther than trying to weasel your way around things and cut deals and step over people.
All right. Thank you so much, my love. That was a great little segment. To our audience, I believe that the trades are a vital part of bridging the gap between the Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois schools of thought from about 100 years ago, right? That's rich history for our community. There has been consistently increasing exposure surrounding the term New Black Wall Street. And I feel it's vital that we educate our communities, not just in digital technology, the STEM subjects, etc. Because while we desperately need more Black people in the medical field, in the health fields, legal fields, it's important that we continue the legacy of building, right? That's what happens in the trades. And then growing, I want to shout out, people who do agriculture as well, because, those are very vital for our communities. So our next guest is Mrs. Tarnisha Harrison. She's the owner and operator of Foxy Transport, based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I love Philly. I love Philly. It's my third team. Go Eagles. Tarnisha and Des actually ran into each other in Jupiter, Florida, a few days before the winter solstice and Christmas holidays last month. She was transporting a watercraft to the dock where he was working, and they struck up a conversation due to, you guessed it, how few Black people are present in the industries where they both have overlap. They actually took a quick video for her TikTok, from what I understand, and then he made sure to get a business card, because as soon as he told me about her, I was like, you told her about the marina? Did you tell her about the show? Da-da-da-da. He was like, wait, I got a card. I was like, okay. So to introduce Tarnisha a little bit, she worked as a CNA for 25 years before realizing she needed a career change amid other changes that were happening in her life. Relatives, including her husband, had been in what I call the CDL 18-wheeler driver game, for years. And it was on a trip with her husband that she started her journey to becoming a business owner. Because she moves boats for a living, and Des told me about how overland boat transportation is an important part of the overall marina industry. And then he also explained to me how much skill it takes to safely haul watercraft. And so that's why I decided to reach out to her within a day of them meeting to ask if she would like to be included in this series, in this episode. And I'm so excited to have her with us today. So Tarnisha, please tell our audience a little more about you and how you ended up transporting boats and other goods.
Okay, well, I went on a road trip with my husband for 5 weeks. And at the time I was doing Amazon Flex. And he said, well, babe, you got a pickup truck. You could do hot shot. So I'm like, well, what is a hot shot?
Mm-hmm.
So he explained it to me a little bit. And I had to, like, Amazon Flex was stressing me out. I fell in a ditch following their app. So, and when I fell in that ditch, I'm in the middle of nowhere. A white woman came outside with a Glock strapped to her back. She had 3 dogs. I was on video call with my husband. She had 3 dogs. And the fire department, the police officer, everybody was out there. And she said, well, what's going on? And the officer said, well, she was trying to deliver your package. She fell in a ditch. And she turned and looked at the officer and she said, yeah, well, my dogs are trained to open the door and attack if you're on my property. So after that, I told I don't know how much longer I could do this.
Yeah, no.
So, so when we got out the truck off the road, we jumped right on the paperwork. He assisted me with getting all the paperwork together. It took like 4 months. He wanted to help me pay for the paperwork. It cost about $10,000 with the insurance and all the paperwork that had to be filled out. So he said, well, I could assist. I said, nope, this is my baby and I want to birth it by myself. So, I got back in that pickup truck and I continued to deliver those Amazon packages so I could get to where I'm at today.
Oh, I love it. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing, part of your life's journey and the beginning of your path as an entrepreneur. Could you please tell us a little bit more specifically about Foxy Transport?
Okay, well, Foxy Transport, I started off like delivering general freight, which I still do.
Mm-hmm.
for one, I want to say this. I got Foxy Transport. That's what my grandbabies call me. So I
Okay.
named my company Foxy. I just want to throw that in there. So I started off, with the trailer doing like picking up general freight. Um, my trailer was hit by a drunk driver on July 4th. So after that, I transitioned into doing power only.
Okay.
And I actually enjoy the power only. They call it a dedicated load. So they have to pay me for the full amount because I only have that on my truck.
Right.
So then I done a couple of boats with the company, and ever since then, that's what I've been transporting. And when I actually met your fiance, that
Mhm.
was the first time I ever done. That was my first oversized load that I needed permits.
Oh,
So I
wow.
was excited about that.
Oh,
Yeah,
so exciting. Okay.
yeah.
Um, First of all, Tarnisha, I want to thank you again, for agreeing uh to be a part of this project, and then, just wanting to be involved in the discussion. And for our audience, I just want to take a moment to draw a historic parallel and mention how important the transportation industry has historically been at times with creating generational wealth for the Black community. One of the historical examples are the Pullman Porters. And so I'm going to put a link down in the thing so y'all can check them out. But they're an example of Black Americans who were able to create generational wealth for their descendants coming out of the Reconstruction area post American chattel slavery. So now let's get into our Q&A section with Ms. Tarnisha, the owner of Foxy Transport. Question number 1. When you were approaching the transition between the work you had been doing for 25 years to working independently, did you experience any anxiety or fear? And if you did, now that you're on the other side, what does it mean for you to be not only a Black woman, but a Black woman from Philly who's a business owner? And how has your family benefited?
Okay, it was. Yeah, I was scared. To be honest, it was a scary feeling because I wasn't going into a job to clock in and out, and they, write my schedule out, and already, they planned everything for me. So that's what I was really, really nervous about, and it was something totally different from what I'd done 25 years of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So, once I got on the other side, I I'm adjusted now. I know what I'm doing now. But when I was growing up, one thing my mother made sure was that she was a homeowner. So when she did finally pass away, her children will always have a home over there, a roof over their head. So that was one of the reasons why I bought a home. But with the business, owning a business, this is for my grandchildren, so they can have something and they don't have to depend on anyone else. They could, but as far as being a business owner, I love it because I make my own schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I work when I want to work. Um, my oldest son, he started his own transport and his hot shop business a month after I did.
Okay.
My youngest son, he works at a factory doing batteries. My daughter, she lives at home with me. She just had my second grandchild, but they're really proud of me. They're really proud of me. And my husband, that's my backbone. If it
Oh,
wasn't for him, I would not be in this line of business. It was him that, suggested it. Not only that, in a few months, we plan on purchasing a 18-wheeler to add on to the company. Hubby would be driving an 18-wheeler, and I had a pickup truck.
okay. Getting it done. Ah, so awesome. Um, my next question for you is, what is the story about your relationship with water that you're willing to share with our audience that explains a little bit about why you don't know how to swim?
Okay, when I was 14, I'm a change your life baby. I'm the baby out of 9 children. So my oldest sibling is like 27, 30 years older than me. And I had moved in with one of the older siblings. It was a sister. Well, she is a sister. And my 4-year-old niece came downstairs. I was about 14. My 4-year-old niece came downstairs. And I don't know if you guys remember those big gulp from 7-Eleven, those real big cups when they came out. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
made me some homemade iced tea.
Okay.
And my niece come downstairs. I'm on the phone in the kitchen and she said, well, Mom's, can I have some? I told her no. I'm like, get out my face. I'm on the phone. She went upstairs. She told my sister.
Right.
So then my niece came back downstairs. She said, Mom said, give it to me. I'm like, girl, if you don't go ahead. So she went back upstairs. She told my sister. My sister came downstairs and took that big bowl cup with the tea in it and dumped it in my face. Dumped it in my face. And she said, and clean it up. And I went in the basement. I cried. Like I just couldn't believe she just did that.
Wow.
And I believe this is where my fear come in at. Like if I'm in the shower, I don't want water splashing on my face.
Mhm.
I don't like a swimming pool. I don't want the splashing. It does something to me. But I
Right.
did make sure all 3 of my children know how to swim.
Okay. Wow. See, and to the audience, that's the sort of thing, that creates trauma. Her story, that's, something about, why she has a fear of water. And he had such a negative experience, but somewhere in her brain was like, but my kids need to know how to swim. So thank you. Thank you for, sharing that story, because it's a traumatic event in your life that's still affecting you, but B, I feel it's really important for our audience to consider, that's something that seems that little, can affect someone for a long time. So my third question for you is, if there was anything that you could say, again, one statement to another Black woman, let's say not in Philly, but maybe they're in Baltimore or, LA, some sort of city environment. And, they've got the kids, they've got all of this happening, but somewhere in their spirit is like, I should be in business. What would you say to them?
If it was easy to do, everybody would be doing it. Just go do what you have to do. Don't let nobody tell you you can't.
Oh, I'm gonna write that one down. Okay. Well, thank you again, Tarnisha, for consenting to be a part of our little crew here. And ladies and gentlemen, we've got our final guest, and then we're going to get into some hot tea discussions about current events. So, our final guest is Mr. Asante Seifabuachi.
Hey, okay. Not bad at all.
Mm-hmm. He is the CEO and founder of the nonprofit organization Black Star Polo, based out of San Diego, California, and the 2023 Sports Leader of the Year award recipient from the Culture in Sports organization. He's actually the first guest who agreed to participate when I thought up this episode around, the spring equinox last year. Asante and I were discussing just the other day how we were virtually introduced by a mutual acquaintance of his and a friend and business partner of mine literally about a year ago. And so I was about 4 months into my whole, we're going to open Black-owned marinas and, getting all obsessed with it. around the time that Asante and I met. And then a couple months later is when I first, had the idea of getting Des and Asante together to talk about what it is like being underrepresented, respectively, in the maritime and marine industries. So despite there being a fair, share of adverse factors that kept pushing the date back, because I wanted to initially record this in August, I feel we have the exact combination of people and are creating this content at a pivotal time. So I really appreciate his flexibility and commitment to participating in today's discussion. So I will turn it over to Auntie to tell us a little bit about your story and your message.
Hey, thank you very, very much for the introduction and even more so for the invitation to be here in this super great, awesome panel. I really feel like I am the luckiest guest because I got to hear everybody's stories before I get to share mine. Saying it's a pleasure is really an understatement from hearing different ventures into business ownership, hearing personal stories, and then hearing everyone's intentions and getting behind a lifestyle to promote Blackxellence in aquatics. It's again, I really, really appreciate it. I feel like we're all family now, and I feel like it because it's true. We all
Mm-hmm.
family now. So to get into my story, yeah, my name is Asante. My full name is Prince Kofi Asante Sifabwachi. My father is from West Africa, Ghana. My mother is from Los Angeles, California. So I'm a true African American down the middle, in between two worlds. My dad came from a village in West Africa. My mom was growing up around South Central LA. So I've got both of it inside of me, and everything that came with it too. I have this thing I like to joke. I have this thing called black privilege, where I can really pinpoint where I came from. I know who my ancestors are. I know my name, and it's an interesting concept to really have that identity so ingrained into me. And the only thing that kept me from understanding that was just time. It was like I had this suit that I just had to grow into, because it was all there. The traces were there between both sides of my family, and then it was just getting more experience in this game of life that we're all in. My story is quite a unique one, I have to say. I was born here in the US. I grew up in San Diego, California. Funny enough, all the Aquaman references are going to kick in sooner than you think. I grew up on a little island called Coronado. It's named Crowned, actually, translated. Yep. Surrounded by a body of water. Grew up close to the beach. I grew up near swimming pools. So it's really interesting to come to terms with this relationship that the Black community, both African and African American, has with water. Because I feel like just, by design and just innately, there was never really a fear of water for me, just because I think I might have been so used to it, so used to seeing it, just it being close in the vicinity of me. So that never was a real obstacle. But I grew up around the water and I played all kinds of different sports because I was a chubby kid growing up. I was more interested in TV shows, cartoons, and snacks. So that was my number one way to get my hobbies in, aside from piano lessons and all those things. But my parents put me into different sports. It was baseball at first, then it was tennis. Man, what else did we do? We did golf. My older brother and I have two brothers, and we grew up with asthma. And my dad is also a doctor. He's OBGYN. He, I think, heard through the grapevine, as well as through other people in our neighborhood, that swimming and asthma actually go hand in hand, because people don't realize one huge health benefit for swimming is that it trains every muscle in your body, including your lungs.
Right.
So getting involved in swimming was actually strengthening our lungs. We didn't know any better. So my older brother was put into the program to swim, and then I followed suit because I was the younger brother, and I hated it. It was no fun. I didn't enjoy it. It was not what I wanted to do. Leave me at home. My mom would take me out of the room, drive me to the pool. I would sit in the car, arms crossed. I'm not getting out. I'm not getting out. She would, nope, you're getting out. You're getting out. We're not turning around. I'd be forced to change into my suit in the car and then get out. Man, I did not enjoy it at all. And my time in this sport, swimming and water polo, it grew because what ended up happening is I was a bigger kid, right, growing up. So the coaches put me to play with the older kids who were also bigger. And
Okay.
that just fueled more hatred into the sport because now I'm training with all the older kids who are much better, much more experienced than I am. And I'm playing the sport that I didn't even want to be a part of.
Right.
Eventually, what made me stick with the sport is really just out of spite of being stubborn. Is I saw how much better the other kids were than I was, and I got so angry at being in last place for everything. And I said, you know what? Let's just turn it on because I look. I don't like swimming. I don't like water polo, but I don't like being last in everything more. So if I got two choices, I'm going to work on the one that I can control. And then through that, I stuck with the sport, played all in high school, went on to go play in college, ended up becoming team captain of my senior year team, ended up living abroad. I got to travel to Europe and go through different teams and different training trips, trying to find clubs to commit to. And then eventually I was able to play in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro for 2 seasons with semi-professional. I mean, it's really interesting, these leagues, because they're semi-professional, but my teammates just finished playing in the Olympic Games weeks before our
Wow.
club season started.
Mm-hmm.
So very much playing with professional, high-level players, and everybody had their experience of playing on junior national teams and traveling abroad and international competitions, and I was just somebody who never really gave up. And this sport, my involvement in this sport has been so interesting because I've always been, you know, the most handsome one on every team. And I think if you can catch my drift, meaning the darkest one on every team, and
Mm-hmm.
it's because of some of the points we've mentioned that you don't see many African Americans, blacks in any type of water body, in any type of water activity, in any kind of aquatic opportunity. And there's a laundry list of valid reasons why that is the reason and the reality, a lot of which are not our faults.
Right.
But being in the sport in the States was very easy to pick out on every team. There he is, there he is, there he is, because nobody else dark was playing this game. The only black one on every team in high school and then college, even in Europe. And it wasn't until I went to Brazil to see another black player on the same team as me, and even multiple in the whole league. You know, multiple meaning a shocking 3 or 4. You
Oh.
know, and that was just it was nice to kind of be able to see some more. I don't even want to call it solidarity because abroad it's just different teammates playing. You know, it's just people getting involved. But that was definitely something that stuck with me. And when I came back to the States after I played in Brazil, I started taking on, some of my own talents in music, and then I became a recording artist. Started performing and promoting and learning how to talk to crowds, learning how to operate in front of people, learning how to market myself, sell different kinds of merchandise, da 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 da. All still while coaching in water polo, playing the sport actively, and then even getting into teaching in academia. I was tutoring and I was a substitute teacher, and
Mm-hmm.
then the pandemic hit. And just before the pandemic had hit, the matriarch of my family, my father's mother, after we had just moved her in back to go living in Ghana after being here for 30, 40 years, she had passed away. So then we traveled back to Ghana for the funeral rites, for the cultural traditions. You start, just a fun fact, after a funeral happens, you start the celebrations a week after they pass. And before this point, I would go back and forth making trips to Ghana, just kind of seeing family that I didn't know, kind of indulging in that identity that was present. And then that's when the idea kicked in of like, wait a second, man, I've played this sport in the US and I've been the only black one on my team and every team that I've been on. What if I could bring a team to Ghana or even create a team here in Ghana so we could have an all black water polo team? Wow, that'd be crazy. It's so crazy, but let me put it in my back pocket and just see what I can do with it in years to come. So going back to Ghana now for the funeral of my grandmother, that was kind of a beginning of getting very reconnected and immersed back into the culture of West Africa. And then it started to brew into my mind, okay, wait a second, we have this birthright to the continent and we have this dream that we can maybe one day put together. And then after that experience coming back into the US, we have to be on lockdown. We have to follow the rules, social distancing, this and that. Once again, I get met with more reasons on why I know how black I am in my community
Right.
with being pulled over for just driving, for walking in public, for being profiled. Sir, you fit the description of such and such. Oh, I'm sorry, officer. You must mean the other black guy that lives in the neighborhood, but it's not me, and just different experiences. And confidentially, maybe not so much confidentially, but now it's getting more comfortable for me to share these stories. Is there was one story in particular where I was walking in my neighborhood and I got pulled over by the security. The neighbor said, "Oh, they saw somebody walking around. They didn't know where he stayed." And long story short, I told the security guard, "Look, man, I live here. I was born here. I'm gonna go teach in the schools that are probably gonna go contribute to your paycheck. Like, what's going on?" Then a
Right.
week later, I'm an open water swimmer as well. I swim in the ocean. A
Yeah.
week later, we finished training the team here in the US in the Bay. And then I do a long ocean swim just for the exercise. And lo and behold, I'm still waiting for my award from the NAACP to receive recognition as the first black person to be pulled over by boat police for swimming. I cannot wait.
Stop
I'm
it.
still on standby because history has been made. Don't let them tell you otherwise. I see a police officer pull up on the boat. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm just swimming, officer. Oh, okay, no problem." And then he leaves. And then a bigger boat, police comes up. "Sir, what are you doing?" I said, "Yo, what?" And then he pulls up slowly, and then I can see the regret starting in his face of, "Oh, gee, hey, so what are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just swimming, sir." Says, "Where are you going?" "I'm just going to this, landmark and then back." Granted, it was a long swim. And then he just starts like, well, and I said, "Hey, question, like, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? I'm swimming in the
Yes.
ocean. You saw
Yes.
me, coach. What am I doing?" And these, well, we just got a call from the concerned boaters, and they said they couldn't see somebody in the water swimming, and they were worried about hitting somebody. I said, "Oh, okay, right, sure. Do you also
Oh.
pull over all the dolphins and the seals that people also see in the water going around?" He's like, well, because I came up to you and I said, "Oh, I don't know what this," and I was like, "Relax, man, relax." And then he eventually said, "You know what, sir, you're right. We apologize. You work with the kids. You're a coach. Okay, look, continue your swim." So just that being a normal day in the life of a melanated man or woman,
Right.
that was a little bit for me what kind of not necessarily broke the back, but it was one more step that was all I needed to take this risk of saying, where do I feel the most comfortable and welcome and at home? And that was in Ghana, in
Mm.
West Africa.
Right.
So months go by after that incident. It was in the summertime too, and it was also just amidst all the George Floyd noise that was happening, and it
Mhm.
wasn't as I didn't take to the streets because look, man, this happens frequently. It was not a shock to me, but that being in addition to all of my own experiences, I said, let me just pack up and go to Africa and make this thing happen. And now we are 3 years later in that decision. I am the founder of the first ever all black water polo team, founded in Ghana. And it is boys and girls. We take kids from the street, kids that live by the lakes, kids that live by the beach. They have fishermen village or fishermen families. We teach them how to play this game, take them to go to different Olympic-sized pools in the country, and then they play this game with the intention to be on a national team to go to the Olympics in the future. And then I do the same thing here in the U.S., going to different African American communities, giving them that opportunity to a resource that has been historically kept from us and even just blindfolded from us to say, no, look, I know, yes, of course, you can be a LeBron, you can be the Kobe, you can be the Venus, you can be the Tiger, but now you can be a you. Now you can be someone that can swim. And then when you swim, you can be a swimmer and the LeBron and the Michael and the Tiger and the Venus and also a swimmer on top of that. And when you talk about the healing and the turning the tragedy to triumph and just empowering the youth and empowering men and women and giving them this thing that it's never something that physically we are unable to do. It's just something that we chose not to do based upon the history, segregation, pools, expenses. So now you have this opportunity where you get to show them something that they can do, but they never thought they could do it in the past, both in Africa and also here in Black communities. And that's, my elevator, whatever it's called, intro for Black Star Polo is it's all around aquatic opportunities for African and African American communities. And that's where I'm headed this evening, is to go back to the continent to continue this work. And I think that's my story in a nutshell. That's a piece of my story in a nutshell. So thank you for listening.
No,
Aquaman out.
yeah. Yes. Okay. Awesome, Asante. First of all, thank you for all that you are doing for our people and our communities, both here and abroad. Especially what your work means for the next generations, coming behind us. And for our audience, I find Asante's personal story and journey as a person to be both courageous and deeply encouraging for young people, when they're learning about him, learning about his organization. And that's part of why I was so passionate about having this episode about water, having him as one of my honored guests, but just really wanting to help him, all the business owners, that are participating in this episode, helping us all have community together, and making sure that as several of my guests have said, that we know we're not alone, and as I said, unity within community. I'm gonna get a t-shirt.
Say it.
Of course. That brings us to our Q&A section for Asante. As a first generation American on your father's side, and someone who has already filled the role as a tutor in academics, a trainer in aquatic athletics, how does the more recent social justice movement inform who you've become as a person, but also the initiatives that are most important to you?
Very good question. And it's answered through a lot of experience. Of course, with this program, with Black Star Polo, it started off just trying to get more teammates that look like me, trying to get more Black involvement in the sport. But then, as literally each day would go on, living both in Africa and then here, it was realizing how many systemic roadblocks have been in front of us in disallowing us to partake in the pool, disallowing us to partake in aquatics. You want to go as recent as segregation, where they would bleach the pools, wide only pools, and give us the worst end of the pool to be in, and even not even putting pools in our neighborhood, as traumatic as that can be, to then going deep back to the history of the slave trade, where when life is tough on that ship, you're in your chains, you don't know where you're going, where death is a better option, you jump off, and then you're the kid seeing your dad, your mom, your aunt, your uncle, whoever, seeing them jump off and go into the water and drown. You make that promise to yourself, I'm staying far away as possible from this body of water, because it's traumatizing, And both of those two worlds, whether it's in the continent or even here, and even also you see it in the continent, you see aquatic opportunities reserved for the upper class, for the wealthy class, because a lot of the swim lessons, a lot of the pool admission is only for those who can't afford it. And that's where it gets a little interesting, because you can call it however you would like. You can say, segregation, you can say trauma, this and that, but also something very important to really equalize that conversation is that pool culture is also just very expensive to maintain a pool. Simply put, it's much easier to find a field of grass and kick the ball around than to go to the pool that's very well maintained and having to buy chemicals, when for football you just got to water the grass, and for basketball you just got to sweep the concrete. That's equalizing conversation. It's just expensive. But one of the journeys that I've been on with this sport is that history of the African American communities not being in the water has raised many eyebrows, that when there is, for example, in present day, a youth team of all Black water polo players getting invited to go internationally and play in European countries where the sport is dominated and represent as the first all black water polo team from the southern part of the Sahara to go. And
Mm.
they do get their sponsorship and their reservations and their flights fundraised and taken care of, and a lot of the publicity handled for them. And then you go to the embassy, and the embassy denies all their visas, not allowing them to travel because they say, wait a second, there's no way there's a water polo team from Ghana getting invited to go to Italy.
Okay.
Matter of fact, all of you are too poor to even leave. And matter of fact, the last time we let some kid leave the leave here to go to a country, they didn't come back. And what is proof to us that you're not going to do the same thing? So denied. There's no water polo team. There's no
Uh,
all black water polo team. Denied. You can't go. So now it's become a mission that's much deeper than just getting my kids to the pool. Now it's getting them involved into something that has been historically really robbed and
yeah.
removed from them. So the joy they experience from swimming laps, scoring goals, jumping in the water, that is the retaliation. That is the rebellion. That is the way we are undoing that generations of trauma. Because look, this joy that the rest of the world has been feeling by the pool, by the lakes, on
Right.
the boats, in the water, is just as much worthy to be in our court than it is with everybody else. So it is absolutely a social justice movement as well as an aquatic athletic movement, because we're breaking down a system that has historically been turned against our favor or not in our favor. So
Right.
we are just saying, hey, we're here too, and we're going to be a part of it, whether you like it or not. And you should have burned the passports when you had the chance, because once we get over there, we taking over.
Oh, I
We
love,
scoring all the goals.
I love it. Okay. Social justice
Yeah.
movements. All right. My second question for you, Asante, is what is the history, if any, of fear of water within your family on the U.S. and African sides? And can you speak on some of the trauma you've seen in Ghana related to a fear of water, or any other types of trauma you want to address about how it's impacting you or your students at this time?
Absolutely. We can dissect that into two parts, my African and American side. So, on my father's side, from Ghana, from the continent, actually, no, you let the light bulb go off. Where he's from, it's a city called Kumasi, or I guess a state called Kumasi to translate, and it's landlocked. There's only a lake there. So, already everybody in that side of my family, there's no water crossover, there's no water interaction, there's none of that. Already on top of the fear of water that exists throughout the continent. And even recently, I don't think my that side of the family ever took on swimming, just because of culture, and then also just opportunity and
Right.
it being present to them, and also just being so fully exposed to soccer everywhere. That was a sport to play.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then going to the trauma side, just even being over there, I can resonate to one of the stories that was told. I was in there treating myself. I'm not even gonna lie. What was I getting? I was getting a pedicure, having a nice little, me day. And the woman, she was struggling, doing the job. So then she asked me, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a swim teacher. I do this, da da da." And then she opened up and was like, "I'm sorry. I'm actually, really working through this because I have such a strong fear of water. I always grew up with it. My daughter loves water, but me, it's difficult because I can't even stand the sights of the water."
Wow.
And she said, even staring at a bucket of water, it triggers her anxiety.
Right.
And you can speak on the stories of the slave trade, of course, the trauma there, but then also another conversation that you can open up is the spirituality, because as the water is both a source of healing and trauma, and
Yeah.
it is the water has been here long before we have, and will be here long after we have.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that's rooted in the respect, and it's everywhere. You even have people that are fishermen that will go into the ocean and get on the boats and drown. How does a fisherman drown? Because they don't know anything about swimming.
Right.
And then another on the other side of that, on the American side, my Black American side of the family, I think their stories with water translates to the history of, we don't want to get our hair wet. That is a very powerful argument on why you don't see many of the black community in the water. Simply put, we don't want to get our hair wet. So that exists. And then another side point is my maternal father, my grandfather on my mother's side. Another story. He was in the first all black battalion to enter into combat under General Patton. He was one of Patton's Panthers. I believe it's the 761st Battalion. He was in Germany liberating Nazis, was never recognized because the state of the times, and apparently it was a big fire that removed all the records from his service. But he would share this story of when he's crossing over into different camps, there'd be rivers he has to walk through, and he would share the fear of crossing over these rivers. And for me to conclude on the story, I would think it's one, the fear comes from getting caught by the enemy or tripping in the river, and then two, it's a double hit of like, look, I'm crossing over this into an unknown territory, and there's water involved, and if I slip or fall, one, the enemy will hear me slip and fall. Two, now I'm in the water with all this gear. Three, I don't know what I'm doing just because I've never been a part of water. So it's just, I think the fear that he's speaking about is just the realization of those three things happening. And regardless of how high or how low your involvement in aquatics is, you can't refute that fear exists amongst all of our people, whether it's trauma from African roots or trauma for lack of inclusion here in the U.S. And it's very compelling to be, seated in the front row of both experiences. It's transformative, really.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, you know, part of your story and your history with us. For my third question, I will say, how does your family feel about the work you've been doing with Black Star Polo?
It's very validating because it really concretes this truth that once your family supports you, once your community supports you, you do not need anybody else. You need nobody else. If your family, your immediate, mother, father, brother, blah, 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 if they're in it with you, you don't need anybody else. And that comes from a longer journey of coming from a family of doctors, lawyers, engineers, and then being the next one in the family to be the doctor. And then third year of college, your 21-year-old son tells dad, hey, I think I want to be a rapper instead of a doctor. You can imagine how much they leapt for joy with that. But that experience, I think, was the training because, like I mentioned earlier, me going into the music career, I applied it like I was going to go into the second level of learning. I took the notes, I would go and network, I would do the work, and I would put the time in. And them seeing that is what let them give the support for the choice to go into music, which is, just a choice outside of what they wanted for me.
Right.
So that pillar allowed them to walk on this smooth path of supporting, this journey of aquatics and getting people involved in swimming on both Africa and the US. I mean, it just kind of came down to me understanding too, your parents are never going to say, I don't want you to do this because I don't like you. It's because I want the best for you.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. And in that journey, I think there's also the understanding of like, look, we know him. He comes from us. Whatever he wants to do, sure, we're gonna get startled because you want to fly across the world in the middle of a pandemic. But we know who you come from, and if it's what you truly want to do, I think we can help out a lot. And the support, again, it's they have supported me, and they are now telling their friends and their colleagues about it. And I don't think you would want anything else other than that, and to feel that support in your own village.
I definitely agree with that. Knowing that you have the support of your family, it's like it's like super wind, beneath your wings, as they say.
Yeah.
And to you, I'll just say that you are a bright light for our people. I I
Thank you.
sincerely hope you feel that deeply within your spirit. I appreciate you, and I firmly believe in your purpose and your passion to make a difference and create positive change.
Thank you very much. Received, 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 received.
Very welcome. And if anyone in our audience is interested in learning more about the African history of water, please check out the book Undercurrents of Power: Aquatic Culture in the African Diaspora by Kevin Dawson. This is an awesome book that details the life, history, and culture of aquatic and marine life across the diaspora before the transatlantic colonizer arrival.
Correct.
Okay.
Capital C.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the discussion portion of our program. We're going to first be discussing, and Asante already made a little allusion to this, the Alabama Dock Water Brawl of 2023. And we're also going to talk about a little bit more mental health in the Black community. So, as I had talked about earlier, I'd already been planning to do an episode featuring Asante and Des and trying to find, some other people since spring of 2023. And I was really hoping to be able to do something for Juneteenth, but between scheduling a canceled business trip and deciding to relocate fully back to the DC area, and just, all these things, it was already August and I still had not come across at least a third guest for the show. The next thing I knew, there was this pop culture, social media, international explosion about a dock brawl in Alabama within hours of the incident. And I literally had a person from another continent messaging me about Aquaman.
Wow.
Like within that day, people reaching out from other continents being like, did you see the Aquaman? So before the end of August, I reached back out to Asante and I was just like, no, this is a pivotal discussion. And, based on both of our backgrounds, we should definitely add this topic to the episode we had talked about. Sorry. Which he, definitely agreed. So Roland Martin inspired me because he went out of his way to make sure there was a Black psychologist, a Dr. Jeffrey R. Gardier, on his show when, he had a panel discussing the incident. I did initially have a female Black psychologist lined up for this episode, but she ended up pulling out, for personal reasons last month, which I respect. So while I did run around like crazy person for about 2 weeks trying to find a replacement for her, I decided I would just pull a quote from what Dr. Gardier said on Roland Martin's show. So this is a direct quote, and I want everyone, to make comments about this later. He said, "What we see going on in Florida, what's going on in Texas, obliterating Black history, obliterating AP psychology that helps us understand others, really trying to erase the legacy of a people, saying that slavery has its good points. All of those things are a psychological assault on people of color and underrepresented minorities. In many ways, a lot of these memes that are being shown, the videos, when you see the laughter, the humor, all of that is really a cathartic way for people to really express the pain, the disappointment, the anger that they've experienced in the last couple of years, physically, politically, economically, and as far as their rights being taken away. So this really does speak to how people of color feel that they have been victimized and continue to be victimized and treated as less than in this country." Okay, so that's the quote that he gave. And I'll say that one of the reasons I decided to become a life coach back in 2008 or so was to be able to help fill the gaps within the medical and specifically the mental health care space within our communities. And, the pandemic, the reaction to George Floyd's murder, the backlash to the Black Lives Matter movement, these are all things that have exacerbated what we already have going on related to generational trauma and the ongoing oppression that we're actively experiencing. And so I have a deep conviction when it comes to us working together to create thriving communities from the inside out. And, that's a lot of the point behind this 100-year plan outline series. And so I really feel that the idea that having strong support networks within our family, within our communities, it creates health, right? It creates economic understanding, and it has the power to interrupt the cycles of trauma that often lead to negative outcomes for visibly melanated people of mostly recent African descent. So I'm going to call on Tarnisha. Part of your motivation comes from how you feel about your descendants and what's important to you, about showing them examples regarding opportunities.
Well, as far as my children are concerned, I have a great man in my life now. I have a great man in my life, but I have been the only parent that they have to set an example, for them. So all of my strives and everything I go through, it's just to show them that you can make it. You just have to put your mind to it. And I found out about myself is that I can operate better under pressure
Mm-hmm.
than if I have something set out in front of me or plan it.
Right.
Like I think faster when I'm under pressure than if it's just put right there in my face. So um speaking about the Alabama bro, I want to say this. Concerning that situation, what made me feel good is because our Black community, we normally don't stick together.
Mm-hmm.
We really don't. And as far as us being Black women, a lot of us, instead of us trying to uphold each other, we hate on each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't stick together. And it's sad. It is so sad. You're stronger as a unit than being separated.
Exactly.
And when that happened in Alabama, I was happy to see we actually stuck together. It was a shame that it was violence that we had to,
Right.
use, but also I was proud that it was no guns drawn,
Mm-hmm.
but we made a stand. And
Yeah.
I bet you one thing, they think twice. The next person before they just run up on someone.
Right.
Like they're just not they're just not going to, it's not going to happen. Like we're making a point that we're making a stand.
Right.
We standing 10 toes down.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to. Oh, and I also want to tell you, I appreciate you letting me be a part of this. It's something different. I would have never thought when I started Foxy Transport, I would be on a podcast with these wonderful people. I really enjoyed everybody's story, and it was a blessing meeting you. The day, like I was where I was supposed to be at.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for that, because he asked for the business cards. I was pulling off. I was leaving, and he said, let me get 3 of them." I said, "Okay,"
She was
but
she was shocked.
yeah, it was an honor to see a Black man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was out in Arizona. I hadn't seen one of us in days.
Mm-hmm.
And when I pulled up, he was the one that they said I had to wait on because he was the only one there that could operate the equipment. They said no one else could do
Mm-hmm.
it. And when I pulled up, I'm like, "Oh, hey, brother." So that was an honor.
Oh, awesome. Yes. No, we're so happy to have you with us. And since she's pointing out Des, Des, I know you got lots of feelings about mental health and trauma and water brawl and
Yeah,
yeah,
I got a lot of that. Um, which part do we need to start at first?
the mental health part
Uh,
and the community part.
and it's as far as mental health goes, it is grossly, grossly negligent, almost criminal that we as a people and a community don't have safe spaces to talk. Or we feel that if you have something going on mentally with you, you are not black enough. You're not black. You're not strong enough. You are not what it means to be a part of this community. Oh, you have to go talk to a psychiatrist, a specialist, a therapist. You need medication. No, you usually stop being, being so soft and man up or woman up or be tougher. And it's a real shame because without that safe space of some people really do need mental help and need medication. Some people just need a space to feel vulnerable, to vent. They need to just to burp their system a little bit so they can continue going. But there is in our community no real safe space for us, men or women, to effectively communicate and to vent our frustrations, to vent how we are feeling without it being weaponized against us. Be it in your own relationship, in your family, at work, anything that you use, anyone that you talk to, being a person of color, those words that you say are going to eventually be weaponized against you. So we oftentimes, A, bottle it up, B, internalize it, C, we go along with the whole mantra of, well, that's something that only white people do. But when in actuality, it is something that only white people have been able to afford for the longest. It is something that has only been catered to white people for the longest. It is only something that has been propagated to white people and colonizers because we were seen as less than. Not that we were equal to, that we are greater than. We were seen as less than, so that it's this type of service that we do not need. And then we also have to go along the fact that the entire mental health system and its founding, the founding of psychology, was a bunch of old white dudes in Europe. It is nothing geared to how we as a people internalize, how we respond to things, our fear things. And I know I laughed when Asante said he got pulled over while swimming after I just made the statement of being able to boat without being pulled over. And I was like, okay, then, well, I guess you can be on a boat while black, but you can't be in the water while black. So and it's those type of things like I can do this and I'm okay, but I can't do that, and that doesn't mean I'm not supposed to be doing this. So we have to slowly start unpacking ourselves and unpacking the community and uniting and supporting one another and start breaking down these barriers and rooms and these molds that we're trying to put each other in, and really stop trying, in all honesty, we should stop trying to define what is blackness. Stop defining blackness, because what one person does not make them any less of a person of color. If I need mental help, that doesn't make me any less black. If I need to go talk to a therapist, if I need medication, if I need physical or mental health, me going to a doctor and caring about my health, me working out, because it helps me both physically and mentally, does not make me less of a black person. Doesn't make me less of a black man. If anything, it makes me greater, because we go to historical references in the black communities in the greater diaspora. All the kings, all the pharaohs had their consorts and their confidants, their physicians that took after them, that cared for them, that gave them the best of medical health at that time. A pharaoh, a king, the village head chief couldn't sneeze without the shaman, the I guess what the head woman, and all the other medicinal
Attendant.
people in the tribe and the family. Just like, hey, oh, you sneeze, what's wrong? But
Mm-hmm.
now you sneeze, oh, okay, you'll be fine. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to get back to that. We have to get back to deeper care for one another, because we are all one family stuck on this rock hurling through space that we have to look out for each other. Because we have to accept that at the end of the day, nobody's coming to save us but us.
Right. Shawana, did you have any thoughts that you wanted to say about mental health in the Black community?
It's imperative that it is addressed specifically for us. And these ideas, these thoughts around, very similar to what Des was saying, that it makes us less of, right? The stigma around it absolutely needs to be addressed, and we need to make absolute certain that our young people know and understand there is nothing wrong with getting help. There is nothing wrong with you for
Right.
getting help and needing help. If medication is what you need, take the medication. I fully support that.
Right.
If it is talking to someone, talk to someone. I fully support that. But whatever you do, do not sit in silence and in pain and in suffering. Please don't do that. We need you.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel it's getting better. It's being more widely accepted,
Right.
but it's still a slow process. I feel like we're making progress generation to generation.
Mm-hmm.
But we've got to do a better job at addressing our mental health. The stuff that I plan, it is not therapy in the traditional sense,
Right.
but there are healing properties in nature.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you are paddling, hiking, biking, running, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
even if you walk down the street, I don't care if you step outside your door every morning just to take some deep breaths in and exhale.
Fine. Mm-hmm.
There are healing properties in nature. So don't ignore that, because I know we have other barriers. I get it. I know the costs alone of getting those types of services. It can almost break you, and that's not going to help if you're already struggling with anxiety or depression or whatever the case may be. But this is a tool that we all have access to. So I encourage everybody to do that and to find that safe, trusted space for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shawana. Asante.
Yes, yes.
Did you have anything you wanted to specifically say about community education, Black mental health?
So there is I hope we're familiar with the foundation, Mental Health America. There is I guess, a division or a branch of Mental Health America in this practice called Mental Health First Aid. If you're not familiar, I highly recommend you look into it. Basically, to break it down, it's really just translating the symptoms of somebody having a mental breakdown, a mental episode, and it's really teaching the public on how to address that and really not diagnose. Diagnose is a too strong word, but more so identify what it may look like when someone's having a panic attack, an anxiety attack, as opposed to a heart attack, or even just learning how to diffuse those situations. And as empowering as it is to diffuse a situation while somebody's having an episode, it also gives you tools to enlighten people, similar how we were speaking about on how, no, there's nothing wrong with you. Physically, you're just having a reaction to stress. It's just teaching the fact that your emotional responses are valid. It's letting people know that it's nothing abnormal about you. It's just an episode. And like all Netflix episodes, Hulu, TV show, They come and they go. 30 minutes, 45 minutes, maybe some are an hour and a half, but they all pass. And, going into my world of sports and music, especially using the water as therapy, that's a place where I like to really utilize that practice of mental wellness, because that's one place where you can undoubtedly just unplug yourself. Because I know you got waterproof phones here in the world, but when you're in the water, you are not connected to anything. You're really disconnected. You're really unplugged. So it's a practice of course, health and wellness and fitness, but also as much as a step towards that mental health practice, because it's very true. Just taking a deep breath, taking a walk, sitting by some water, looking at some water, all those things. I mean, there has to have been a reason why, some of these doctors' offices have a fish tank in their office where you can see the water, see the fish, see the bubbles. It's all very calming, and it's important for people to know that we have resources and access to resources to encourage the mental health, encourage the mental health association, the same way we have access to resources that can allow us to be a part of aquatic spaces. They're two things that our people need to be very readily aware of.
I agree, and I'll bounce off of a point that he said. For people who don't know, I've been a little obsessed with mirror neurons and different parts of neurology. Poor Des, he just knows I'm constantly talking about mental health, how the brain works, etc. And it's brain chemistry. If you're feeling suicidal, depression, anxiety, why people can get addicted to substances, it's all related to your brain chemistry, right? And so I'm always reminding people, like Asante said, it's a temporary state usually. Even if you're having a full psychotic break, that's a temporary state. It doesn't define you. And something happened, right? Something happened to you, or you heard something, you saw something, and you're having a reaction. And for people who don't know, after 2020, the APA, right, the organization in America that governs psychology, psychiatry, they actually came out and made a statement and said, we have helped to propagate racism without realizing that is what we have been doing. And we sincerely apologize. And as of 2021, they've actually been, really starting to put in the work of going back into the DSM and different areas of what has become psychology and sifting through it to see there weren't enough of us in the room. And that's why so many of us, even if we go to the therapist, we start doing cognitive behavioral therapy, we feel alienated. And so some of the work that some of the other organizations I'm affiliated with, we're working to combat that. And so I just want to thank all of you for, putting some input into this section of our discussion, and say, there are many examples of us not openly sharing key pivotal information with one another across families, across communities, and across generations. And while I won't get too deeply into this topic today, because we still have so much we want to talk about, I will point out that our communities were devastated and broken apart between the 1970s and the 1990s in a way that we're not only still feeling today, it's integrally woven into our daily lives. And yes, I'm talking about the DEA and the crack epidemic, and just all of that purposeful things that were designed to specifically break up our families. And so part of my purpose for putting these sessions together is to normalize discourse that is direly needed, both within our communities and externally with people that we have formed active alliances with, so that we can resolve and heal from underlying issues that have taken generations to form. So now that we've said that part, I would like y'all take turns. Everybody talk about what they thought about this Alabama dock brawl. Yes, just jump.
Don't all speak at once, huh?
Yeah,
Well,
slow down, huh?
I told you how I felt about it. I was happy that we stood up. Like,
Yeah,
No
I
parenting
think
never came my way. I guess I'm blessed for that. But
Mm.
it
you
is
you really spoke on a really important part about how so you saw so much unity. I mean, in I guess it's really just a protection. You know, you really saw how traditionally we know how to stand our ground with no weapons. You know, we know the power in numbers. Where you mess with one, you mess with all of us. Um, you know, I spoke a little bit, you know, with Askia about how whatever it takes to get people excited about getting together, unity, getting involved in aquatics, getting involved in just being aware, you know, that hey, look, what if that guy did not know how to swim and jump in the water? What if, you know, would have been a different story. And I'll joke on it and use it as a promo marketing tool or whatever to say, hey, you know, this is why we need to know how to swim. It's a reality, man. It's a fact. It's a fact. Just the fact that, you know, there are black people working on boat docks. There are black
Mm.
people that can lifeguard, you know, like it sounds almost silly to have to spoon feed, spell it out, and tell that yes, we can do this too. But hey, man, if it takes a viral meme for you guys to get it, you know what? Let's play along for the rest of the weekend, and then when the buzz goes down, let's actually address that. No, it's a real thing that you can get involved in. So
Right.
yeah,
Now, Des, you had some subject matter expert stuff to say about the doc and
Um,
how these things happen.
yes, I do. I mean, because we all know, like, it's readily open available knowledge, and if you studied history, you know that that dock was actually uh, one of the docks that was actually used to transport slaves in, you know, during slavery. But just like our counterparts like to say, all they had to do was just comply, and they would have saved themselves a whole lot of lumps.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all they needed to do was just comply. Because the guy that got off the boat was a captain and a mate, which means he is second in command of that boat. And that boat was owned by the city of Montgomery, if I'm correct, which leased a section of the dock, which is not uncommon. It is not uncommon for people to own docks and companies buy a portion of the dock or rent or lease a portion of the dock. It is not uncommon for, you know, waterfront properties to have dockage available open to the public and private. So, and if you think about it, this is a vessel that was used to transport and ferry people. I'm not too familiar with what the boat's purpose was, but it was a purpose nonetheless was to make money. It was a business. So that business space leased that dockage area. So that way that boat can come in, dock, patrons can get off, and new patrons can get on, and they can continue to make revenue. By those people being parked there, they literally impeded that boat from being able to make continuous revenue. Now, on the side note of that, because boating is such a heavily predominantly white institution, it is not uncommon for day drinking to happen with people who own boats. From the time their boat hits the water or the time they get on the water, they start cracking open beers, liquor, wine, what have it. Whatever their poison is, they will start drinking because
Right.
it is less likely for them to get pulled over and
Mm-hmm.
get a DUI or a BWI, which is boating while intoxicated,
Oh,
versus being a DUI while driving on land.
right.
So it is not uncommon for alcohol to be present, which was a possible force of antagonization to start and happen, because there's also a sense of entitlement that comes with particular types of boat owners. Because I can afford this boat and I'm affluent enough to be a boat owner. They get hoity-toity because they have a boat, they have a vessel, and it's a nice boat or a nice vessel or what have you. they feel that they are above certain standards and certain laws and certain rules. So
Right.
ego also played a role in their response to not complying to the mate's response to simply moving their boat down. And it wasn't like they had to get on the boat and start it up and move it. They could have simply untied two ropes, two people grabbed each line and walked the boat down uh, in less than 5 minutes.
Nope. You know, I thought about another show I want to do called When Hold My Beer Meets F Around and Find Out. And look, I'm talking to my brothers like we need to do a show because that's what I feel like been happening since 2020, and it's just one of those things where that's what the white folks say. Oh, he gonna tell us what to do. Hold my beer, I'm gonna handle this. And when that hat went up in the air, I was like, oh, it has officially become F around and find out. They finna learn today. And so I just thought it was, like I said, not to watershed moment, since we're talking about water. But I think it was just one of those collective moments because you had all of these, professors coming out of the woodwork to talk about how Rosa Parks refused to sit down a couple of miles from where that dock is. Martin Luther King Church, a couple miles, the one, Birmingham, a couple miles from where that dock is. And Shirley Chisholm, is famous for saying, I bring my own chair to make my own seat at the table because y'all having, too much of a problem inviting us. And so also, like Tarnisha said, not condoning any violence, but the folding chair was patented by a black man. And so it was just, all of these different things, kind of coalescing into one event.
So we can literally say that they literally got smacked with a piece of black knowledge.
Literally. Literally.
They literally got hit with some black history. Literally.
Yeah, literally. And so we will now, unless anyone else has anything to say about the Alabama dock brawl, I want to move to our next discussion piece because we are running a little bit extra. And
one question.
Oh, yes.
I got one question for our real life Ghanaian Aquaman, Mr. Asante. How difficult on a scale of 1 to 10 was it for that young brother to actually swim across with those boots on?
Let's see. Difficult in the sense of we use that.
Boots.
The boots, we use that as a training tactic,
Oh,
because you swim with boots on, you swim with the hoodie on, you swim with any type of clothes with extra drag. So when you're doing that, that's kind of a strength training. It's like you're running with a parachute, if that can translate pretty well. So for him to do that, yeah, man, I mean, again, he's already a strong swimmer. He could work on the stroke, but he got the job done is all that matters, But yeah, it's not an easy feat, It's not an easy feat. And I think for him to jump out, swim there with the clothes on, with the shoes on, and then pull himself out and get ready to brawl, I mean, it shows how much you can physically benefit from an aquatic lifestyle. Thank you. As a black person.
Oh, no, he was young. He had that adrenaline. I was like, okay.
Yeah, a lot going on.
Yeah.
So our next topic is about swimming, more water. And so for the Alabama dock brawl, that happened in 2023, but there's actually a precursor, really not okay event, and that is the Soul Cap ban by the International Swimming Federation in 2021. So for those who, don't know, this is basically an international body founded in 1908. And, while I generally assume any company or organization that existed before the 1870s, if they still exist today, they're super racist, right? But I try to think when it comes to international governing bodies, they're not that way. And so there's a young lady, make sure I get her name right. There we go. I'm back. Okay. I think I had some technical difficulties there. Yes, so there was a young lady named Alice Deering. She was a professional swimmer, and she partnered with an organization named Soul Cap that makes, swim caps specifically for people with curly, kinky hair, essentially. And the International Swimming Federation just completely banned it, and what I love about this story is that the uproar was so big, not just here in the US, but internationally. A year later in 2022, they reversed the ban. And I wanted to include it in this discussion because A, it was related to water, but B, it's an example of how sometimes there are groups out there where they are going to admit they were ignorant, they were uneducated about our skin, about our hair, about our culture, because what they don't realize when they do things like that is we have a lot of spiritual connection to our hair, right? And out of the 5 people, we all, are wearing our hair, naturally. Tarnisha has locks, Asante has locks, Dekevius has locks. And so for you to not honor that as part of our body, that's once again colonizer behavior and thought processes. And so after the uproar, ISF, they made a commitment to, okay, we're going to talk to some of these groups, we're going to talk to some of these individuals and see why y'all are so upset. And then they apologized and reversed the decision. So I specifically wanted to hear some of Asante's input as a athlete who swims in the water, because I think he said that he was at least aware of the ruling when it happened.
Yeah, they I'll let them know that, hey, the system you put in place is pretty spotless, man. You guys do a really good job keeping us away from a lot of the things that we need to enjoy. So I'll give you credit on that. But now it's starting to get a little sloppy. I knew you didn't want us to be a part of your pools before. Now you're not even trying. And I say that as in anyone that is a swimmer knows that hair on your body is drag. Mm-hmm. When it comes to competition time, you will shave down. I remember in high school and college, we would have the days where we have to shave our arms and our legs and our facial hair. Some of us even shave the head all the way down because you want to reduce every fraction of a second you can to get the best time. So if somebody is an Olympic athlete and coming up to an Olympic time trials with long hair, they've already crossed that off in their mind. They've already had that conversation of, yes, I am aware of the content of or the texture of my hair, and I'm aware of the level of competition I'm about to engage in. So for them to be like, no, you can't wear these caps because of your hair is absolutely stupid and really just lazy discrimination. Honestly, it's just, it's just like, well, come on. It's something where like you are already adding to the hurdles that are existing. You're already adding to the exclusion that we face in aquatics. There's already a history of white only pools, bleaching the water, not allowing us in, the trauma that exists. I mean, even we had, great aunties, uncles, ancestors getting hosed by the water. Like there's already so much exists, and you're going to throw one more thing that's not even like a firm ground for you to stand on. It doesn't make any sense, and I know it comes not too far before or after a previous statement they issued about how there will be no Black Lives Matter merchandise to be worn in the Olympic stadiums. Which that one, you can see both sides of the coin a little bit clearer because at that time, yeah, we were rioting. There was a lot of violence associated to these riots. And if you know sports, if you know high-level sports, the crowd, anything goes. You watch the Super Bowl, you watch any of these big games, people drink and their team scores, they're going to cheer and push their friend. The team loses, they're going to push their friend. So anything that could potentially incite a riot, I can understand that one. But for you to double down and say, no, now we're going to exclude you because of your natural hair, like what? That's not. That's impossible. That's it's just not wise, and it's unfair. How are you going to train your whole life to get to the podium, and then hey, your hair is not cool enough, or your hair, we will not allow you to do your part and get an oversized African American themed swimming cap to participate in the games. It's like it's absurd, really. But I'm glad somebody saw the issue and they overturned that statement because it you guys aren't even trying. Like, come on, that's a weak argument. I see my man's got a hand up.
Yeah. Des, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna expand on the fact that 'cause I think the IFBB's ruling was that this one cap wasn't allowed because it didn't conform to the natural shape of the head.
Yes.
But when you think about it, our hair actually grows in a natural shape, and it does confound to our head because it comes from our scalp. So it's like, how does your ruling? The rule is being followed because it's coming from our scalp, which it does. Like, even if we all pull our locks back and put a rubber band behind our head, it conforms to our scalp. So it's like
Foolish.
it doesn't make any sense for them to go against the rule that they have in place. And it also shows to a fact of a lack of diversity, equality, and inclusion on those boards and when those rules are being made, because there's nobody that looks like us to be able to say, hey, I don't think that's a good look.
Right.
Because this is what's going to happen. Or to say, hey, I don't think that's a good look because, no, according to your rule, the hair does comply with that. They just didn't think of it. And that's me giving them a little bit of grace and assuming that, because of their ignorance of it, they didn't really see how it was going to go, especially due to the fact that they did overturn their ruling.
Right. And I'm going to point out, as someone who grew up watching the Olympics, I love watching the Olympics, and the amount of times I saw something happen with figure skating or something happen with gymnastics, and the people in charge said, you know what, we're going to let this ride for the rest of this season, and we're going to investigate, we're going to figure out, and then the next season, the next whatever competition, that's when they would do the rule. And these people, they made a knee-jerk reaction, right? Out of, again, as Des said, out of ignorance, out of, as I said, colonizer mindset. And they didn't think, oh, well, you know what? We'll let her wear the cap for this, international swimming season. And we're going to talk to some Black folks and find out what this is about. But they did the opposite. So, like I said, I just thought this was a good example of showcasing they'll get you any way they can, but also those groups coming together and contacting them and saying, no, this is not okay. And also how the Black Lives Matter movement, what happened with the world with the pandemic, it's all related to, again, what happened at the dock brawl in 2023, why more and more since 2020 we're just like, oh no, as what did Tarnisha say, she's never had a Karen roll up on her, but she ready does.
My dad used to say to me, he used to say, a dog could sense if you're scared of him or not.
Mm-hmm.
They might know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I want to say too that is I want to say another reason why they probably made that ruling was if you look at it, African Americans and people of color dominate what 3 sports in America: basketball, baseball, and American football. We dominate those three sports. We have Simone Biles. She's dominating gymnastics, which was predominantly white. We have Saban or Sabat, and he used to play for the Nashville Predators, a hockey player that won the Stanley Cup with a black player on their team. All right, so we're starting to encroach into ice hockey, which was again another predominantly white sport. We have golfers, predominantly white sport. We have tennis players, predominantly white sport. We have all of these predominantly white sports that once we break that barrier and get into it, just much like Jackie Robinson and baseball, once we break that barrier and we get into the room, we fill it up. So now they're like, no, we have to do what we can to keep this, at least this one thing for us.
Nope, because Asante coming for him. He said,
Thank you.
all black polo team. And we finna
Thank
win.
you. Yeah,
So,
we taking everything.
I mean, they
We're bringing
scared.
the goal-
They scared
bringing the
running.
goal back
That's
home.
what it boils down to.
yes, I agree.
It's a fact. It's all a fact. It's all a fact. I mean, even they did that with Simone when she was making these moves that
Yep,
were too
they were-
difficult for her competitors
And
to
they were
complete.
penalizing her.
Stop
Well,
it.
and
What?
the figure
And
skater from the 90s who was,
Yes, I forgot about her.
Yes.
She did these 3 triple backflips, and they banned that move. Simone Biles has like 3 of her moves that are banned because they are too difficult for the other gymnasts to attempt. But they fail to realize how much effort and time she has put in to perfect that. Because why would you risk doing a move in a competition that can A, hurt you in your career, and B, cause you to lose points if you haven't practiced it thoroughly?
Miss Shawana.
Yes. So all of these are perfect examples of institutional racism. And I hope the listening audience will take heed and understand that the fight is not over. We have to make sure that we hold those who are in these positions, these decision makers, the policy makers, that we're paying attention to the policies, that we are fighting and advocating continuously. And sadly, I think the fight will continue beyond us. It shouldn't, but it will. And so we have to pay attention to those types of things.
Yes, thus the 100-year plan. Because, like I said at the beginning, a lot of that project, it came out of me going back and studying the people who founded organizations like the NAACP and seeing them kind of that first wave post Reconstruction, post American Civil War. And then, we're regaled, with constant tales of Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X and, my heroes, Sidney Poitier and Nina Simone. And so I feel that there would have been another wave if not for the DEA and the crack epidemic, right? And so I call what Asante, the work he's doing, the work that, Shawan is doing, we're the third wave. And I'm, determined, and poor Des, he hears about this all the time because, I can't stop talking about it. But I'm really determined to support as many of us as possible so that people can stand on our shoulders. So unless anybody has any more comments about that, I am about to wrap us up. I just want to sincerely thank each of my guests for making this happen with me. We could definitely talk about these issues for much longer, but I'm hoping to keep this going, in other conversations. Facilitating this type of energy with a group of people like yourselves has been a passion of mine for years. I simply didn't think anyone cared about the issues I was so passionate about and determined to dedicate my life to addressing. But the last few years have fueled me with hope, and I have so much gratitude to the people that have supported me every step of the way and encouraged me to bring my ideas to fruition. To my audience, I will put the links in the section at the bottom of the YouTube video, to the material we've referenced. Also, anyone who wants to reach out to our guests and hopefully do business with them, or donate to their cause, or invest in their endeavors, I will make sure there's contact information so that you can do so. If anyone has ideas for other episodes or wants to reach out to me about collaborating on a project together or bringing me in for consulting, coaching, mentoring, or nonprofit and community education and support projects, you can reach out to me on all the things, but mostly LinkedIn, at Askia Marie. You can follow Tarnisha on TikTok at LovelyFoxy74, where she posts the loads she hauls all across our great nation. For Shawana, you can visit her website, theh2o.life, to find out more about her company, or you can book with her directly from her site. She's also available on Instagram at the.h2o.life, or you can just look up the H2O Life on her Facebook. Asante is reachable on his organization's website, blackstarpolo.org. He's also on the gram at BSPWPC. That's Buffalo, Snake, Puppy, Walrus, Puppy, Cat. And also at Asante Asante Prince, or his club's handle, which is at AWWPC. Like I said, I'll put a link to his fundraiser in the video description as well. So anybody who wants to donate can donate. And if you want to check out Des working on or talking about boats, mechanical work, or simply expressing more of his opinion, his Instagram is at Martin and Co Marine. So again, put that all down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I know this was a long video, but Skid don't do a little bit of words. I got lots of words for lots of people, because people need to hear, these sorts of discussions. And as several of our panelists have said, creating more safe spaces for us to, build unity within community. I should be a rapper. What do you think, Asante? That was a good rhyme.
I think you should drop the mic. That's a bar.
Okay. Does anybody on the panel have anything they want to say before we go to our audience or to each other?
It was a pleasure meeting you guys. Nice seeing you again, Des. Thank you for handing that card over to Wifey Cakes.
Wow,
It was an honor.
And let me just say this. I wasn't going to say it during the recording, but I'm so going to say it now. So when you said Des, I was like, okay, I don't think I know a Des. Cavius.
Snap, crackle, and pop.
Like, he looks so familiar. And I kept looking. Oh, listen, we went to the same church.
Oh, wow.
Like, I know his mom. I know family. Yeah, and when I tell you, my heart is full right now, because I know some of the things that he has dealt with in his life. And brother, I'm so proud of you. Like, I am overjoyed. And y'all, I'm sorry, because I'll get emotional, but we lose too many of our brothers. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And to see where he is, I'm not going to say anything else, but I love you. Askia, you are family, ma'am. I need you to know that we are family now. Matter of fact, all of us are family, okay?
Bang.
So if I got it, you need it, I'll do my best to get it to you, okay? I really roll like that.
All right. Yes. Well, again, I'm Askia Marie. This is a series called The 100-Year Plan Outline, part of my podcast, Thoughtful Times with Askia Marie. And this has been our episode on water, Blackxellence in the marine and maritime industry. Okay. Everyone have a good night. Before we go, it is going to be Tarnisha's 1-year anniversary since she started her company tomorrow. Let's give her applause. The newest entrepreneur in our group. Asante is literally, as he said, in a few hours, about to get back on the plane to go back across the water to, do more Ghanaian polo magic.
Yep.
And so, everybody who's watching this, we're going to post this on Martin Luther King Jr. Day 2024. We're recording it in advance, but just wanted to say that if this video is something you chose to watch on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I want you to just, let all of this love, let all of this positivity, let all of this, really good energy seep into you and carry you through 2024. Okay.
Amen.
Signing off. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you again for being a part of this project. Love you guys.
Bless.
Woo.